Good morning, Wall Street winners. It is Tuesday, July the 16th, and boy, are we in for some interesting activity today. You can see in the three indices for North America, we are in the green across the board. If we move over to the Yahoo app, we've got a lot of different things going on, but one question that came up that I want to address is where do you see when companies are going to have their earnings? And there's a couple of ways to see that. If we go to our list of stocks, for example, click on a stock, we'll use Goldman here, and we scroll down into key statistics in the summary area, you'll notice that there is an earnings date here. Right at the bottom of the screen, we've got an earnings date, and they just announced, so their next date will be October the 15th. That's one place where you can see this. If we go back to the list and we scroll down under utilities and we see events calendar here, right at the bottom, events calendar with that 20 in red, click on events calendar and you can see day by day what is coming out in terms of earnings. So here we have what's going on when companies file with SEC filings, which typically happens pre-earnings, and then when the announcements come out. So you can see that Tuesday, July 16th, which is today, we have Bank of America, which announced and it had positive earnings. It's up pre-market. Morgan Stanley, which announced it had what was viewed initially as positive earnings. It beat on a few fronts. I think it missed on another front, and it went up and now went down the same amount. It was up $2. Now it's down $2 pre-market. At the end of the day, we have JB Hunt. And then tomorrow you can see Kinder Morgan. Thursday, one of our first tech announcements, Netflix, TSM, Taiwan Semiconductor. We've got M&T Bank coming out on Thursday as well. And this tells you on the right after market or before market. So whether it's before the bell or after the bell. And then on Friday, Halliburton and SLB, which are two oil stocks, the first of two oil stocks. And then it will continue on down the road into next week where we have Zion Bank on Monday. And then on Tuesday, we hear from CNR, we've got Google, Visa, HCA, and Bank of California. So we're really starting to now move into earnings week and where things are really starting to come out. Just the start here this week, and it starts with our big financials. So if we roll back, you can see JP Morgan they filed on Thursday the 11th, they announced on Friday the 12th, and that really kicked things off for us. And then Goldman filed, oddly enough, on Sunday, and they announced Monday morning. You'd think they would have filed on Friday, but they filed on Sunday by the looks of this, and then they announced Monday. So that's where we are. Interesting if we go back and look at these. Let's start at the bottom in finance. Finance is making a move. Schwab announced this morning they missed, so they are off about $4, which is a pretty significant move for that stock. They did not see the climb in customers, the increase in customers that was expected. That was one of the downfalls there. You can see Goldman, which had a great day yesterday after earnings. It is off a little bit today, but really only 10% of what it went up yesterday. Morgan Stanley initially was up pre-market by about the same as it's down now. But then they started to dig into that earnings announcement and look underneath the, call it the headline, and they are now below water on going into the session today. So the other one I wanted to call out is, and this was a call we made 2 weeks ago, SoFI. Look at what SoFI has done in 1 month. Less than a month, really. From July 8th, which is last week, it was down at a low of 618 in the, let's call it 620. It is now set to open 11 cents higher than it did yesterday. This stock could hit $7.40, which is a $1.20 climb on a $7 stock. This was one I was heavily promoting last week. This is going to amount to probably somewhere between what it is there on the screen, 13.5, and let's call it 17% gain in 7 days. So these are the opportunities that are out there that we try to point out on this channel. When everything else in finance was slowly climbing up ahead of earnings, this stock was on the decline. And there was no valid reason for it, no news out of the company to suggest that things were wrong. We see earnings are coming out in 13 days. I'm not sure I would hold this into earnings if it continues to climb. I think there would be a pullback, but you never know. Maybe earnings are going to blow it out of the water. But I would take my 16% profit, and you could really call it a year at this point. I mean, a 16% return in a week is a phenomenal return for an entire year. And that was one of the calls we had last week. So I'm not suggesting to sell it just yet, see what takes place, but with 36-cent moves in a day, it's highly likely that at some point this stock is going to pull back. I'm not saying it's going to come back to 620 right away, but it will take a bit of a dip. So take your profits, get out. There are going to be tons of opportunities to do this all over again. And if you want an opportunity there, let's skip through tech for a moment and oil and go to transport. JB Hunt announces today after market close. This stock has been on a tear as well. If you look at the 5-day or the 1 month, you can see that, again, in the course of a week, this stock has gone from, we'll call it 155 up to 170. So a 15 or 173, a $15, $18 increase. This stock is anticipated to have worse than expected earnings, or at least be on the decline year over year. There is nothing in the cards to suggest that this stock should be running up to this level going into earnings, which come out after close today. I bought some put options yesterday on this, feeling that by end of day at 4:30 today, when the announcement comes out, this stock is going to be back down in the 150s. I think it may even get down to the low 150s, high 140s based on earnings announcements. But these profits could easily be erased, and that's what I am banking on to make a profit myself. Now let's cover the others. So health and retail, not a ton going on here. Movements obviously up and down, but healthcare is the one that is starting to climb. We had some good day. We had a good day yesterday for some of these, and then it kind of dropped off at the end. Others started well and then dropped off. There is some analysts and companies out there that are putting stocks now into different buckets, the Biden bucket, the Trump bucket, and if they feel that a certain party or a candidate is going to win, then they feel the stocks in that associated bucket will go up. So we'll get into that in another video, what those are as we get closer to the election. We've got oil. Crude oil is off huge today. It's off $1.56 right now going into the open. Yesterday was actually a pretty decent day for crude, but it is looking like it's pretty much red on the screen across the board. That said, there's no good reason for this. So this is just a little blip, a little speed bump in the road. Oil will end up today, I think, above $81 and maybe even $81.50. It may lose some ground today, but I don't think we're going to be off $1.50 to $2 today. So we're, I think, hitting a bottom. I think we're going to start to see crude futures start to turn here, and that should bode well for oil stocks toward the end of the day. Now we get down into tech, and tech is all over the map. CrowdStrike had a great day yesterday, starting at around 370, up $6 for the day. We've got the likes of Apple having great news out of India and China on increased sales in those countries. So that stock is near record highs. We've got other tech stocks slowly making its way back. Obviously, one of the ones we don't follow because I'm not a fan of the company, but the DJT social media company. When Trump the assassination attempt occurred, and then that stock opened the next day. When the assassination was a failure, that stock rocketed upwards. Again, no good reason, just hype around that. So I wouldn't jump onto that bandwagon at all. We've got others that are making moves here. The ones that are interesting are semiconductors right now. Semiconductors are in a bit of a lull. So we saw ARM off yesterday. $3.50, up a little bit pre-market, maybe a third of what it came down. On semiconductor, which announces, I believe, next week, it was off a little bit. I'm expecting some better returns on this on earnings announcements because we are starting to see a bit of a turn with Tesla and some of the EVs there. AMD was off a little bit yesterday, but still in a relatively strong position from a price point. Qualcomm was up yesterday of chip manufacturers, then that's probably on the Apple news and the iPhone news. And then we've got just a little bit of movement in Lam Research. We have, if we scroll down, or TSM moved a little bit. I was in and out of TSM yesterday. They do have earnings coming out this week, so I'm waiting for a positive earnings report on TSM, and bought in around the 184 level, sold around the 186 level yesterday, and did that a couple of times. Taking out a small percentage profit. Played Meta a lot yesterday, got into Meta in the 195 range when it dipped, and then it went up to the 505 range. So that was a nice little spread. I didn't get out at 505, I got out in the low fives, I think it was 501. So I missed about $4 in that, but it was a tidy little profit, and then got back in and did it, not to the same extent, but made another profit there. And then as it dipped at the end, I bought in for the open today, hoping for a rebound, and it looks like it's up again today. One I would stay away from right now is BABA, with news being weaker than expected out of China, so I wouldn't be putting money into that, and if I was in that, I would be probably decreasing my position, although I do expect their earnings should be positive, and they have a super strong buyback policy in place right now for shares, so that should help from an EPS and earnings per share standpoint. NVIDIA is really hovering right now in a bit of a range. It's a bit of a wait and see game. All focus right now is on the financials and what's happening around their announcements. Google is on and off. It's in a range as well. It's at the higher end of a range, so I'm waiting on that. Adobe's been climbing back and had a good day yesterday. It's off a little bit this morning. And there's our TSM. So TSM, another one that if it drops today, it's up $3 pre-market, which is pretty good. If it stays there, if it drops back into the 184, low 185 range, I would definitely pick up some of that pre-earnings. And then we go down into financials. And again, I'm a huge fan of SoFI. Morgan Stanley was a miss. I wouldn't get into that today. I'd wait for that to come back into the 90s. Goldman is super strong, but I'd wait for a pullback in Goldman at 492. It's pretty rich right now, although prospects and future guidance look very good for that. And I do love JP Morgan. It had a great day yesterday. I got in when it dropped at open and then sold when it came back up. But I'm going to wait for this to pull back into the 190s or low 200s, which I do expect will happen at some point going forward, especially when we get through these bank earnings and they become really out of the, they stop being a part of the narrative and the conversation. So that's where we are today. 16% gain in less than 5 days in SoFi. These are the things we call out on the channel. If you're liking these videos, please hit the subscribe button.